This shir is on Likutei Sichos Chelek Tesvav, the Sicha of Vayeshev, the second Sicha. On the pasuk Vayeshev Yankov Beretz Megurei Aviv. Yankov settled in the land where his father had lived. This is after Yankov comes back from being with Lavan, and he comes back to the land of Canaan. So Chazal tell us, Bikesh Yankov Leisha B'Shalva. Yankov wanted to sit with serenity, with peace. Kafatz olav reigze shel Yosef. The anger of Yosef jumped on him. And then Rashi continues from Chazal, Tzadikim ask to sit serenely with Shalva, and Hashem says, Is it not enough for the tzaddikim what's been prepared for them, for the world to come, that they ask to sit in shalva and peace and serenity in this world? So Mefarshim explain that what does this mean? That since we know that Olam Haba is the main room, the traklin, to use the language of Pirkei Avos, and Olam Haz is just like a corridor going to the main chamber. So therefore a person always has to feel as if he's only a ger, as if he's only temporary dwelling in this world. And those that want to have shalva, serenity, here in this world, it's like they are transferring the importance of the next world, which is the main world, and they're trying to impose it on the corridor, trying to make as if we want to have this world to be the main world, to be the peaceful world. But that world is the main. Why are you trying to get settled in this world when that world is the main thing? However, this is not understood, says the Rebbe. How could you say such a thing about Yankov Avinu, who we know, the forefathers, we say, hey, Neina Merkava, they are like a chariot to Hashem, that all of their limbs were holy and totally separate from matters of material pursuits, and everything they wanted was only an expression, a merkava, like a rider, like a driver drives a chariot, where the only thing the chariot could do is what the rider wants it to do. The body of the Avos, the whole persona of the Avos, was only a conduit and being driven, so to speak, by the rider, which is Hashem, and they're only transparently doing whatever Hashem wants. So can we even entertain that the Yankov would have mistakenly transferred importance to the corridor rather than the world to come, which is the chamber that's the main agenda, the main destination? Especially Yankov Avinu was not just one of the forefathers; he was what was called Shlimu Davon. He was the complete one of all the fathers. Question number 2: according to this Pirush, comes out that asking to live in shalva in this world is a negative thing, because you're asking, in other words, to transfer. You're transferring your importance and perspective that this world you want to have a good time in this world. No, the next world is the main one. But from what Chazal said, that tzaddikim, the answer to tzaddikim is it's not enough for tzaddikim what's prepared for them in the next world. They want to sit in peace in this world. From that we understand that there's no complaint on the tzaddikim that they somehow have their values skewered. What's the complaint? The taina that Hashem is saying is that they should be happy with what's waiting for them in Elam Haba. Wait, it's coming. But not that wanting to live in Shalva in this world is somehow intrinsically problematic. So you can't wait, it's coming. Not that, well, how can you ask for this world to be more prominent? The next world is the main one. In other words, obviously, when we talk about tzaddikim wanting to live in shalva in this world, when we talk about Yosef, Yankov wanting to live in shalva and peace in this world, it doesn't mean to have a physical, bodily peace, that he should be, retired and and sipping a pina colada on the beach. Sorry to use such language. But what does he mean, obviously? He means a ruchnis dika shalva. He means an inner, a spiritual peace, serenity, which will be like Olam Haba, that there's no eating, no sleep, no drinking. Tzaddikim sit, and what do? They bask in the rays of the Shekhinah, right? And what's the answer to that? No, it's not enough for the tzaddikim they have it in the next world. They want it in this world. The answer, in other words, what's being negated is that the shalva you're looking forward to bask in the ray of the Shekhinah, that's coming in the next world. In Elam Hazeh, it's a time of work. You have to use every minute, every second needs to be used out. Not to relax and to get your reward, spiritual reward, but reward has to be utilized for service, for avodah. As Chazal tell us, today you have to do, tomorrow is the time for the reward. So we've reframed this concept that obviously when we're talking about tzaddikim, and Yaakov was saying that he wanted to sit in shalva in this world, it's not that somehow we wanted to transfer the prominence that we're told, the importance of the next world, that's where it's at. It's not like he wanted to say, no, I want to have it in this world, have a fine physical existence. No, it's obviously also talking about that same spiritual shalva that's awaiting in Elam Haba. He wanted to have it already in this world. But now we have to understand, what does it mean actually? That you can sit in this world is going to be like Elam Haba. That's one aspect. But more than that, since Elam Hazeh, as we said, needs to be work, so why did Yaakov even ask for shalva in this world? Obviously, Yaakov's avodah was, as spoken in Pirkei Avos, has to be, you have to work not for the reward, not for the sake of reward, not even for the sake of a piece, a ruchnius dike shalva. Obviously, the desire of Yaakov is to do what Hashem wants. Hashem wants work in this world, so why is he asking for shalva? What does that mean? Obviously, there was something he had in mind. We have to understand what it was. Third issue is after the end of what does it say? The Chazal tell us, Rashi brings that Yaakov wanted to sit in shalva. No, the story of Yosef jumped on him. That was very non-shalvadik. That was years, 20 plus years of very, very great trials and tribulations that Yaakov went through. But after that, it says, Yaakov lived the best years of his life, as we know, 17 years in Egypt. He did sit in shalva. He did get what he wanted, shalva, in this world. So, if it's not good, why is he getting it? And if it is good, why when he asks for it now, does he get the story of Yosef? Why doesn't Hashem give him his grant? Not need the story of Yosef, have shalva from the very beginning. Base. So the nekuda of explanation here is like this. What it means that Yaakov wanted to sit in shalva is that he wanted to have shalva not as an end result, but he wanted to have it as being the sign of the completion of his avodah to fulfill Hashem's wish. In other words, if you fulfill Hashem's plan in totality, the shalva is part of the fulfillment of that plan. As we know what the Rambam says about the request we have and the taiva, the desire we have to Yemei Mashiach, it's not for the physical benefit it will bring, but it's for the peace that we will have physically and the opportunities we will have, as the Rambam says, they should be peaceful and they should be able to increase in their chachma. In other words, the greatness, and this is what Yaakov wanted. He didn't want this as a reward. He wanted the totality of the experience of fulfilling Hashem's will, and that will be when their shalva is able to fully do Hashem's will. What is the taina though? It's not enough for tzaddikim what's waiting for them in the next world. It's pshat that then Yaakov was not at the stage to be able to take this level of shalva. And therefore at that stage, Hashem was telling him it should be enough to suffice with the fact that the shalva will come as a reward in Elam Haba. And through this, that kafatz alav Yosef, through the story of Yosef, Sataka Yaakov was elevated, and now he reaches a level where he's able to absorb, he's able to have this shalva, which is, as we said, it's like the Elam Haba kind of revelation, but he's able to get it in this world, and that's why we find that he does get it in this world. He has, Vaychi Yaakov, in Eretz Mitzrayim, he has the best years, and he has a form of shalva in this world. So let's understand, what does this mean? That he wanted a shalva as a totality of the experience of doing Hashem's will, not as the end result. I did Hashem's will, now I want peace. No, this is part of the full fulfillment of Hashem's will, is that there should be a peaceful settling here in this world. That will show, that will be the completion of this Avodah. Let's understand. So, Gimel. We'll understand this by first understanding that in Schar Mitzvahs we find two opposing things in the reward for mitzvahs. On the one hand, the Tachlis HaMechuvan, the objective of mitzvahs is not to come to something else through the mitzvah, like getting reward or something, but the actual fulfillment of the mitzvah, this is the mitzvah. For example, when you go to work, somebody goes to work with something that he doesn't have any passion about particularly. He works and he gets a paycheck. His work is about getting the paycheck. Here, doing a mitzvah is not about the reward for the mitzvah. The mitzvah, it itself is a connection with Hashem. Hashem asked you to do X, Y, Z. When you do that, you are bound up with Hashem. That is the entire experience of a mitzvah. So why is there reward? Why does Hashem promise reward? It's because Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekapeach schar kol beria, and similar reasons. Hashem doesn't ever deny anybody, any creation even, their reward. And so therefore, if somebody did something good, there is a reward. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is the connection with Hashem. On the other hand, what kind of reward comes? Is it just an unrelated reward? No. The reward that Hashem pays for doing the mitzvahs is not something that in and of itself has no connection with the mitzvah, but actually that reward is a result, a mesubav, a result of the mitzvah. To use the lashon of the Alter Rebbe, that what causes the reward for the mitzvah is the actual mitzvah, to the extent that the Alter Rebbe says that from the reward we will know what the mitzvah is. In other words, the reward, it's like the reward for baking bread is you have bread to eat. Oh, so you know what was the avodah you did? You were baking bread. Sorry if I use the mashal, that's not 100%, but you understand. The point is that the mitzvah itself, the reward is not just something unrelated. If you break bread, I'll give you $10. $10 has nothing to do with bread. If you bake bread, you will eat the bread. Oh, that's a reward that's coming from the actual mitzvah. But we have to understand, if the fact that there's reward is not really the meaning of the mitzvah. The mitzvah is the connection with Hashem. Why do we get a reward? We said because Hashem doesn't want to take away any. Hashem doesn't want to ever deny. There's a schar. The guy put forth effort. You should get a reward. Hashem doesn't want to take that away. So if it's just a side thing, it has nothing to do with the full purpose of the mitzvahs. It's just I don't want to get this for free from you. I'm going to pay you. So why are the mitzvahs therefore in a way where the actual reward is actually a byproduct of the mitzvah? It's only a side thing. Why does the mitzvah why does the reward have to be similar to what you did with the mitzvah? There's a ha'ara here, 19. Even if you want to say, well, you see, you may propose to say, when it comes to reward for mitzvahs, in order for the reward to really be fully an appreciated and thoughtful reward, right? It's when the reward is similar to the mitzvah. Then the person getting the reward feels, wow, that mitzvah, he really earned that reward. However, says the Rebbe, since the mitzvahs themselves, the connection with Hashem, that's the essence of a mitzvah, is higher, much higher, infinitely higher than the concept of the reward that comes from the mitzvah. So you can't say that in the mitzvahs, which their whole inyan is connection with Hashem just gives a reward because he doesn't want to, be holding back a reward for good effort. So you're going to say that the reward is in the same notion of the mitzvah only because the reward should be a more invested and thoughtful reward. But the whole reward is a side issue. You're not going to change the notion of a mitzvah, the essence of a mitzvah, to make sure that the side issue, the reward, should be even better. Should be more thoughtful, more meaningful, more appropriate. So obviously, the fact that the mitzvah is indicative of the reward is similar to what's actually being achieved by the mitzvah, this means that there's something intrinsically important about the mitzvah, the reward of the mitzvah being related to the mitzvah. It's not just a side thing. Let's understand now. Dalit. Similar to these two extremes in the topic of the reward of mitzvah, right? We said on the one hand, the reward is irrelevant. The mitzvah is all about the connection with Hashem. On the other hand, we say that the reward obviously is important to the extent that we say that the mitzvah is, to the extent that we say that the reward is similar to the mitzvah. So we have these two concepts also when it comes to the reasons of the mitzvahs. Hashem's desire in the mitzvahs, also the mitzvahs that are called eidos and mishpatim. In other words, there are some mitzvahs that are called testimony. For example, on Pesach we went out of Egypt, so now eat matzahs. They testify to the fact that on the 15th of Nisan we went out of Mitzrayim, right? Maybe we wouldn't have come up with the mitzvah ourselves, but now that they're given, we understand what they are testimonials to. Mishpatim are the mitzvahs that we understand. The mitzvahs that have reasons. Don't steal, because if you steal, the guy will steal from you, and there'll be a breakdown in society. There'll be mayhem. So we understand why there needs to be borders and mishpat, and those are logical mitzvahs. Even those mitzvahs, essentially mitzvahs are the rotzen Hashem, the will of Hashem that's higher than reasoning. The fact that there are reasons for many mitzvahs is because the rotzen of the mitzvahs, the will that Hashem vests in the mitzvahs, come down and are enclosed also in intellect and reason. On the other hand, it's understood that the fact that the rotzen of Hashem comes down into a reason is actually connected with the fullness and completion of Hashem's will itself. So here we have again two extremes. On the one hand, the will of Hashem is far beyond reason. Will, rotzen, doesn't need a reason. It's higher than reason. Right? On the other hand, it's not just we don't understand the reason, it's just higher than reason. Hashem wants it. Why? On the other hand, Hashem does want also that will and wish that's higher than reason should be able to come down all the way into reason. And by the way, that's why we have in the Ha'aras 22, 23, that's what we have on the one hand, mishpatim. Even the mitzvahs we understand, we're supposed to fulfill them because Hashem said so, not because we understand. Because there's intrinsically, those mitzvahs are Hashem's will, and will is higher than, that's what I want. On the other hand, even chukim, that's what I want, but Hashem, even with those mitzvahs, brings it down all the way into intellect. And that's why even by Parah Aduma, Hashem tells Moshe, I'm not gonna reveal to you the reason for the Parah. There is a reason, I'm not gonna reveal it to you. So the totality of Hashem's will has these two extremes. On one hand, it's will, unrelated to reason. On the other hand, that will goes down all the way into reason. Why is that? The explanation is, the completeness of Hashem's will when it comes to mitzvahs is that not just the position of the one fulfilling the mitzvah, not just the completeness of the will of the will of Hashem, the way it expresses itself in mitzvahs, is that whatever situation the performer of the mitzvah may find himself at, whatever level of bittul and piety and connection to Hashem he may be, it should always be felt. He should always appreciate the goodness and needfulness of the mitzvah. And that's why the Eibishter makes it in such a way that the will of mitzvahs becomes enclosed even in reasoning. And therefore it also brings beneficial results in a way that even a child, in parentheses, even a spiritual child, as the Rambam says, who doesn't appreciate the finer things of spirituality and the nuances of connecting with Hashem through a mitzvah, even he will understand that the mitzvahs are good, because the mitzvahs are not just, they don't just express themselves in being this holy wish of Hashem. Even the way they come down into we can even process them in our understanding. Wow, that's amazing. If you live a life according to Hashem's instructions, you're supposed to have a good life. That's not something side. That's something part and parcel of Hashem's will, that the mitzvah should be good at all levels. That shows their complete goodness. It's not just good in one spot, it's good wherever you are. If not so, says the Rebbe, if not so, Hara 24, Why would Hashem allow his existential will to come down into some form of reasoning? So Hashem wants that the full expression of Hashem's will should be so good, it should be so powerful, it is so godly that it's there at all levels. Even to a spiritually immature person sees, wow, this is good. Vav. But since created being Nivra, compared to the Creator, to create to the Beira, is totally infinitely removed. So this benefit that there is in mitzvahs, that they're good for all levels and for all kinds of people. And the reason for that is because the source of that is because they're essentially good, and therefore they're totality of good on every level. This will only be revealed, in other words, this deepest essence of mitzvah and the fiery godliness of the mitzvah will only truly be revealed in the world to come, when Mashiach comes. Then we will see the desire and the pleasurable, the essential pleasure that Hashem has, which is in mitzvahs, and that's higher from reasons and from reward. It's basically about Hashem having nachas, and you kvelling, you kind of just being part of the Hashem's nachas, and just, you don't need any reward, you don't need anything. That's nothing greater than that, than being present and privy and bound up with Hashem's nachas from his existential will, his essential will and pleasure being fulfilled. And by its big tzaddikim that are merit to the level that's called your world you will see in your lifetime. In other words, your world to come you already have here. So that revelation they could even have when they serve Hashem in this world. That in their fulfillment of mitzvahs in this world, they have the shine of Hashem's essential rotzen, will, and tainug, and pleasure. That's a very high level to get to. In order that this should be able to be this essential rotzen and tainug, will and pleasure of Hashem, should be able to be in a revealed way in the avodah, you need two things. First of all, tachlis habitl. You need total bitl. That the avodah that you do, that the person does, has to be totally not thinking of any ulterior something, any reward, even not a spiritual reward. Simply to do the will of Hashem. That's the only reason. Number two, that this itself, the desire to fulfill the risk of Hashem, should be in a way that this is his true mitzias. In other words, that this becomes synonymous with who he is. His expression of self is actually transparently the expression of Hashem's tainug. What is his desire and his pleasure? The pleasure and will of Hashem. And we're going to see this now, that these two inyanim are hinted in a pasuk that the Rebbe is going to bring in. Shalom Rav le'avei. There's a lot of peace to those that love your Torah. As we're going to say now in the next Ches. The previous Rebbe explains the reason why it says Shalom Rav le'avei is a pasuk in Tehillim. There's much peace to those that love your Torah. Why doesn't it say to those that there's a lot of peace to those that study your Torah? Leimdei Torah. Why oyavei Torah? Because in order to get to the level of Shalom Rav, to major peace, to a lot of peace, to a great peace that Torah brings to. So limud Torah, learning Torah itself is not enough. You need to have the love of Torah, not just the love of Torah, but the love of Torah because it's Hashem's Torah. Not because the Torah is so great, Torah is so dear, Torah is so exciting, but mainly because it's Torah Secha. Love your Torah. The fact that it's yours, God, that's what's important to me. So we have to understand. The Gemara brings this pasuk as a proof to the following concept. It says, Talmidei Chachamim increase peace in the world. As it says, this pasuk in Tehillim, Shalom Rav, there's a lot of peace to those that love your Torah. 1 second. If to get to Shalom Rav you need Oyavei Torah to love Torah, so why does to love your Torah, so why when the pasuk speaks about Oyavei Torah, but the Chazal, the Gemara is bringing this to back up what it says that Talmidei Chachamim Marbim Shalom Ba'olam. It says Talmidei Chachamim. Talmidei Chachamim means those that learn Torah. So he's saying Talmidei Chachamim increase peace, as it says, a lot of peace to those that love your Torah. Here speaking about learning, here speaking about loving. So the explanation is like this: by bringing the pasuk much peace to those that love your Torah. So the Gemara here is trying to bring a proof, not just that Talmidei Chacham increase peace because they learn Torah, but to say also that the increasing peace in the world is actually also inclusive of the ones that are bringing the peace, the Talmidei Chachamim, the studiers themselves. Through the fact that the Talmidei Chachamim achieve a ribui, a great peace in the world, they also become majorly peaceful. Right? Because we say, Shalom Rav, there's a lot of peace to those that love your Torah. In other words, within them, the lovers of Torah itself, there's a lot of peace. The Chazal said, Talmidei Chachamim through learning Torah increase peace out there in the world. The Gemara that brings a proof, and it brings a pasuk which says even more that they bring peace out in the world, they also bring peace in themselves. And that's a higher level of shalom, as we're going to say. Why is that? Because the true concept of peace, shalom rav, major peace, is not just when you actually have peace. Actually having peace is when the guy you're fighting, the opposition becomes overcome, and he makes peace. True shalom is when it's not even possible, it's not even shaykh, there's no even trace of the metzias of the being of an opponent. And if there's no trace of an opponent, then obviously you have peace. And that kind of peace is only in Hashem's essence, because He's the true Bligvul, the unlimited one, and He doesn't have any criteria, any gedorim, any boundaries. So by Him there cannot be anything that's opposing. So here's what we're saying: that Talmidei Chachamim create peace in the world. Yes, they can bring together two opposites, but those that are oyavei terasecha, they're even greater. The shalom rav that they achieve by learning Torah, by loving your Torah, they access shalom rav, the great peace that's hinged, that's rooted in atzmos, in the essence of Hashem. Right, as we said, the Torah mitzvahs are really the expression of the wish and pleasure, the essential pleasure and desire of Hashem. So by learning Torah, because it's your Torah, that you connect to atzmos. And through the fact that Talmidei Chachamim achieve peace in the world, because Torah has that existential concept of peace coming from Hashem, so they also get that peace within themselves. By them, there's also the revelation of the Ratzon and Tainug of atzmos, of the will of Hashem and the pleasure of Hashem that's to be found in Torah. Since in order to get that gilu, you need to have the avodah to be tachlis abitul, totally bottle, only to fill the will of Hashem. That's why it's called oyavei terasecha. That their love of Torah, even their koch, their burning, energetic learning of Torah, also the way they learn Torah, the way it's practically applicable, it's not just for the Torah's sake, because of the greatness of Torah, but because it's your Torah Hashem. In other words, they're learning because of the Nois and Torah, because the one who gives Torah, they're totally transparently bottled to Hashem. And that allows them to be hooked into the source of Torah, which is Hashem, Atzmos. We still have to understand, since the Avodah of Teresecha is about fulfilling the wish of Hashem, so it really should be, where's there more wish of Hashem being fulfilled? They should have more energy and more excitement in doing mitzvahs than learning Torah. Because if you want to ask, what does Hashem want? If you love Hashem, you want to do what He wants. What does He want? He wants a dwelling place in Tachteinim, in the lower worlds. And that's happening mainly through mitzvahs, because mitzvahs are impacting the physical. Yeah, we have intellect here, it's got physical intellect, but still, deed and action in the world is Tachteinim, is a lower realm compared even to Seichel. And that's where Hashem wants the action to take place. He wants a dwelling place there. So that should be, if they're transparently loving of God who gives the Torah, they should be really more involved in mitzvahs. So why did we say that the big peace that they connect to Atzmos, to the Hashem's will and essential pleasure, is through loving Torah? Shouldn't it be through mitzvahs? So we'll understand, by understanding with the explanation of the Alter Rebbe explains that there's an advantage to the bittul, to the experience of bittul, of not being, of transparently connecting to Hashem. There's an advantage in Torah study as opposed to mitzvahs. What is it? By doing mitzvahs, so the bittul of the person, it can be like a total bittul, like a servant who's fulfilling the instruction of the king, and he does what he wants. So there's two things here. There's the king, there's the person who's fulfilling the wish of the king with something physical in this case. When you talk about the bittul and the transparency of the study of Torah, what happens is that the person takes in the seichel of Hashem in his mind, and when he speaks Torah, it's like he is saying, the word of Hashem is speaking from within him. He's so one with Hashem that it's like Hashem's Torah speaking through him. That's why we say, who is the kings? Who represents truly Hashem's kingship? Man, Malki, Rabbanan. Who are the kings? The Rabbanan, because by them taking in Torah, they actually become one with Torah, and the Torah is, so to speak, speaking through them. It's not like a servant who's doing what Hashem is telling him. He has a Metzias, and he's becoming bottle. His Metzias becomes like the Metzias of the king. And therefore we could say like this. The reason why we talk about Oyavei Torah Secha, even though that if they love Hashem, and they have bottled to Hashem's intention, so it's going to be Tadira B'Tachtenim, which means the main thing is about doing mitzvahs here in the physical. But even we want to talk about the style within which, the level, the extent of their bittul, within which that parameters, in that framework, they're doing the mitzvahs, is the tachlis of bittul, just like the bittul of learning Torah. In other words, that even their mitzvahs are being done not in a way where they're like a servant doing the king's will. They have managed to achieve the level of bittul of Torah, where they become truly like a chariot, and the Ratzon of Hashem can just transparently be carried out through them. It's in a way that automatically and naturally the will of Hashem is being fulfilled through them. There's such a concept that speaks in the Gemara that there was a Rav. When he came to Moedim, he didn't have to consciously think that he has to bow. We bow at Moedim. Minav Sheikakari, he bowed in and of himself. He was so transparently just like an expression of Hashem's will. That's usually in Torah. That's the expression of bittul of Torah. But it can be that a person can reach such a level that even in mitzvahs he gets to that level of bittul. So the pasuk says, Shalom Rav Le'eva Terasecha, that the ones who get Shalom Rav, the connection of Shalom, the way it is, not to cancel out, not in Ba'olam. There's level Tamid Chacham Mamish Shalom Ba'olam. They can make peace in the world. You learn Torah, Torah is peace. So you can even impact the helem of world, the obscuring of world, and bring Shalom there and show Hashem's in charge. And then Shanema, the pasuk that Chazal bring, is tell you even more than that. Shalom that with those that love the Torah, they get to the bittul of Torah, and they love Hashem and the Ratzon Hashem. They can tie into the Shalom Rav, to the Shalom of Atzmos, where there's not even an opponent to begin with. And this can be something, their bittul of Torah can be also in their performance of mitzvahs, that they're totally Merkava-like, they're totally chariot-like, just an expression of Hashem's will. Yud. This concept is also hinted at in the two Pirushim on the words Vayeshev Yaakov. Yaakov settled in the land where his father lived. But then there are two deeper Pirushim, Pnimis HaTorah, from the Maggid of Mezritch, from the Alter Rebbe. Both of them have a connection to Parshas Vayeshev. As it's known that the day of passing of the Maggid was on Tuesday, third day of Parshas Vayeshev, Yud Tes Kislev, Tav Kuf Lamed Gimel. In this year of giving the Shir, Tav Shin Pei Beis, also it's Yud Tes Kislev is on day 3 of the Parshas Vayeshev. And also, the Alter Rebbe's redemption was day 3 of Parshas Vayeshev, Yud Tes Kislev, Tav Kuf Nun Tes. That's when Alter Rebbe went to liberation. And both Bagid and Alter Rebbe have two differing Pirushim on Yaakov lived in the land of his father. The Magid learns Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz. Yaakov lived in Eretz. Yaakov went down from his high level, supernal level, to go be'eretz, to settle in Eretz, in Artius, in earthliness. Why? Because of Megurei Aviv. Megurei means to collect. In order to collect the Netzoitzes HaKedusha, which are in Eretz, and to bring them up. He went, Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz, he went down to earthliness, Megurei Aviv, to collect those Netzoitzes that are in in the land. What's Aviv in this case? Maybe to bring it back to his father in heaven, I'm not sure. According to this, Pirish comes out that the Teichen of Vayeshev Yaakov, it's an Aveda which is mainly fulfilled, which is mainly got to do with mitzvahs, because mitzvahs are where you impact earthliness. Alter Rebbe teaches Megurei is Lashon Yira, fear. Yeah, Logur, Leisaguru, Megurei is fear. And also, there's a Lashon, Megurei is also Oitzer, like Megurei Melea place. The Mishnah says like a Megurei is a storehouse full of fruits. It's a storage. No, actually, it's a keli. Says it. Teaches it. It's a keli that we gather things in. So it's like a storage. Aviv goes on Chochmei Lo, supernal Chochmah. And what's the pirish? So Meguri Aviv is like this: that Vayeshev Yankov reached the level of the Yira Elah, the highest level of Yira Megure, which is an oitzer, which is in itself is a storage house to Chochmei Lo, to Aviv. Megure Aviv, it's a place where the Chochmei Lo, the supernal level of Chachma, which is represented by Aviv, can be expressed. And he explains that in Eretz Megure Aviv is connected not with mitzvahs, that's connected with Torah, because Chachma, that can be a conduit for the highest form of Yira Ilah, the highest form of Yira, that's where Chachma, the connection with Chachma Ilah, with supernal Chachma can be. Chachma Ilah is Torah. So according to what we just explained, that there is a Maila in Torah and a Maila in mitzvahs, that mitzvahs are more earth, impact more tachtonim, whereas Torah is a higher, more subtle level of bittul. So according to what we've just explained about Oyav Torah Sech, we can say that these two Pirushim are not two separate things, they're two sides, and one complements the other. The Pirush that Maggid is explaining, what was Yaakov's Aveda? Yaakov's Aveda was to bring it down into earthliness, in order to gather up the Nitzaitzes, to elevate them. The Alter Rebbe was saying that also this Aveda, in what level was this Aveda carried out? It was also done in the Tachlis HaBittul, in the same subtlety of Bittul and pristineness of Bittul, which is usually expressed only in Esek HaTorah. Yud Aleph. Now we can come back to explain, what did Yankov want? Yeshiv Yaakov, well, he wanted Shalva. What does that mean? According to the Pirush of the Alter Rebbe, the Magna Alter Rebbe, those two Pirushim, we'll understand what does it mean that he wanted to be B'Shalva. The Kavanah, the Medish, is Yaakov wanted to live B'Shalva. It's not that Yaakov wanted to rest, because he had the Tzoras. He wanted to have Shalva from Tzoras Esav and Tzoras Lavan. Big trouble that he had to overcome Esav, he had to overcome all these years in Lavan. It's time to rest. No, he wanted that the Shalom and Shalva that he had achieved through the fact that he had refined the Nitzaises, the sparks that were in captivity and in Meitzorim, in the boundaries, in the Tzoret, Tzorim Elashem Meitzorim, in the boundaries of Lavan and Esav. He said, I want that bounty, I want now to be a revelation of what was achieved. And the reason he wanted this Shalva is not for himself, but because the full revelation, it brings out, when the revelation is here also, that everything is calm and serene, what's brought out is the shleimos of Hashem's will being recognized here in this world. So Bikesh Yaakov Sheva is connected with Megurei Aviv. It's connected with the Nitzaitzes that he had refined in the artzius, in the earthliness. And nevertheless, he had done it in a way of learning Torah, with a bittul of one who learns Torah. Right? So he wanted the Shalva. But why didn't he get it? Why didn't he get it? Continues the Rebbe in Eis Yud Beis. According to this, we'll understand why Bikesh Yaakov Shalva was dafka by Yaakov and not by Abraham Yitzchak. As the pasuk emphasizes, in the land, Yaakov was living in a land that his father had lived. But by his father, it was Megure, Gerus, temporary dwelling. By Yaakov was Vayeshev, permanent dwelling. Because the Aved of Abraham Yitzchak, the right side and left side, Chesed and Gvuras, was mainly Yechudim and Lianimatzuz. They were working in Atzilus. They were bringing together various forces. They were bringing together unifications, Yechudim Elyonim in Atzilus. They were working in the supernal worlds. Shenkin Yankov, that represents the middle path. That the middle path we know goes from one extreme to the other extreme, all the way from the highest level to the lowest level. He was achieving things also down here below. And that's why Vayeshev Yaakov lived in the place where his father had only dwelled. There's two things. First of all, his Aveda was in Eretz, and in a way of Vayeshev. His Aveda in Eretz was in a way of Isyashvus, a way of permanent dwelling. Not like Avraham Yitzchak, which because of their Aveda was in Atzilus mainly. The application they had to this world was in a temporary world. It's called Gerus, only temporary dwelling here in this world. Based through the Aveda of Vayeshev Yaakov, he was able to achieve Leisha B'Shalva, to live in peace and serenity even in this world. In other words, living in peace in this world means that there's a full expression of Hashem's Rotzen and Tainim, the essential will and pleasure of Hashem, which of Atzmos, which is expressed Dafka and Tachtenim. Because this is where Hashem has his true, the fulfillment of Hashem's true pleasure is when it impacts the lower worlds. So when this is fulfilled to its fullest with a bittul and a total oneness with Hashem, then the person can feel, Yaakov is able to feel the expression of that even here in this world. However, he wasn't able to get it yet. He wanted it. Because in order to get to that, he needed first to go through the story of Yosef. Why? Because even though we're saying that Yaakov's refinements and his Aveda was in a way that it was impacting earthliness, but let's analyze. He was in the house of Lavan. Lavan couldn't have any control over him. Lavan had to beg him, tell me, what do you want? How much should I pay you? If I find favor in your eyes, tell me, how much should I pay you for taking care of my... You don't sound... This is not somebody who's subjugated to Lavan. Lavan is asking him, how much do you want? I'll pay you. Also when it comes to Esav, he comes to meet Esav. Yaakov comes in, he's untouchable. He's not subjugated to Esav. Shenkin Yosef, when he's taken to Egypt, and he's a servant to Potiphar, and he's put into the prison, and even afterwards when he becomes secondary to the king, he can't do anything he wants. He's a secondary to the king to Pare. He has to get permission. So it comes out that if you really want to talk about earthliness, to the descent to Leishev, Ba'artzios, Vayeshev, Yaakov, Be'eretz, Meguriyava, the descent of Yaakov to earthliness, to really get those sparks of Kedusha that are down, out of the control of Kedusha, and to elevate them, that's really only through the descent of Yosef into Mitzrayim. And since, as it says in the beginning, Eile, Telis, Yaakov, Yosef, these are the children of Yaakov, Yosef, in other words, that Yosef is the full and most consummate continuation and fulfillment of Yaakov's Aveda. So he's the one who takes Yaakov's Aveda down. He's taking, so to speak, the Inyanim of Yaakov. He's going, when he goes down all the way to Mitzrayim, that's a real descent of Yaakov and Yaakov's Aveda. And since the Leisha B'Shalva, the sitting in serenity here in this world, is actually, as we said, an expression of Hashem's essential pleasure. It's a nachas ruach of the Eibishter, so that's connected with Vayeshev Be'eretz. It's connected with Aveda in this world, in the earthliness of the world. That's why it came out, Dafka B'Poel, when it didn't come out after Lavan and Esav, because that wasn't a full expression of Hashem's refinement of the earthliness. Dafka after the story of Yosef, when then there was the full Yerida, the full descent, and there was the refinement of Egypt itself, not just in place that he went to Egypt, but also and Be'ikar, in the quality of the Aveda, and in this madrega that he wasn't in charge of himself, Yosef, but even there able to fulfill the wish of Hashem and have Hashem's wish. So that's where there's an expression of Hashem's tainug, and once that's expressed and revealed, so then Yaakov is able to have this inyan of Leishev B'Shalva, to actually sit in Shalva and have the full expression of Hashem's tainug, be one with Hashem in the mitzvahs, in a way of bittul of Torah, l'chaim.